Jazakumullah khair for inviting me to your masjid and community. As my first time actually coming to this masjid, alhamdulillah. The topic that I have been assigned is a topic that is very near and dear to me and to all of us. And it is about some practical tips and rules about how to raise children, especially given the current circumstances and the current climate that we find ourselves in. And of course, I don't need to remind you that children are of the biggest blessings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us. In fact, the Quran tells us that there are two things that make life beautiful. There are two things that sweeten life. What are those two things? Who can tell me? In the Quran, quote me a verse that Allah says, there are two things that make life beautiful. Al-malu wal-banuna zinatul hayatid dunya. Wealth and children make life beautiful. Wealth and children beautify and are the adornments for this hayat dunya. So Allah Azza wa Jalla is reminding us that children are of His blessings, right? And Allah mentions in the Quran that of His miracles He has blessed you with banina wa hafada, children and grandchildren. Allah has given it to you. These are the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah mentions of His miracles is the miracle of the family. And in the famous hadith in Sahih Bukhari, our Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, the word for family in Arabic is rahim. And in fact, technically, rahim means womb. But what you mean by womb is people who are connected to the womb. And so in English, we say family. So the word for family, one of the words is rahim. So it is mentioned in the hadith in Bukhari that when Allah created the concept of family, rahim, the concept of family hung on to the throne of Allah. And it said, "Oh Allah, what is my maqam in your eyes? What is the status of the family in your eyes?" So Allah answers, Hadith Qudsi. And remember, the word is rahim. Are you not satisfied that I created you from my name Ar-Rahman? The concept of family is coming from my name Ar-Rahman, Ar-Rahim, ishtiqaq. It is being extracted from Ar-Rahman. Are you not happy that the one who connects with you connects with me? And the one who cuts off from you cuts off from me. This is the family in Islam. The one who connects with you, establishes family, keeps the family, connects with me. And the one who breaks off from you, breaks off from me. So this is the status and the maqam of the family. My talk today is about 7 simple rules about how we can, insha'Allah ta'ala, better our family and the tarbiyas of our children. So I hope, inshallah ta'ala, you guys are not just paying attention but taking notes, because these are 7 practical advice. I've given this lecture in front of thousands of people. Alhamdulillah, the feedback has been very, very positive overall. So these are 7 rules. So you guys are ready, inshallah?
Yep.
Ready?
Inshallah.
Not taking any notes. Okay, rule number 1. You can write it on your phones if you want, no problem. Here we go, mashallah. See? These days you don't even need paper and pen. Once upon a time, you had to carry your paper and pen. Rule number 1. You ready now, brother? Okay. Rule number 1. There are no rules. There are no rules. You cannot raise your family by science, by equations. Raising your family is an art, not a science. There are no rules. There's no hard and fast rules that work in every single scenario. It's not a computer equation. It's not a program. It's not an equation that's mathematics. It's not science. You don't just plug and chug and get the result. And anybody who promises you 7 rules to raise your children and guaranteed success, he is not knowing what he's talking about. Famous psychologist of Harvard wrote a New York Times best-selling book about child psychology. In the introduction he writes, when I was doing my PhD in child psychology from Harvard, I had 6 theories about how to raise kids, but no kids. Then over time, I had 6 kids, but 0 theories. This is what happens. And the fact of the matter is there are no rules. Raising children is an art, not a science. You cannot teach people art, you can teach people science. So raising children is something that you need to approach with a different frame of mind. You need to approach with a different frame of mind. Imagine yourself continuously on the job, being trained on the job. learning on the job. Always something new on the job. You're in continuous learning phase as a parent. That's what being a parent is. So you approach it with a different mindset, is the point. So there are no rules, but we can say there are suggestions or tips or advice. So rule number 1, there are no rules. Tip number 2. Okay, we now modify because there are no rules. Suggestion number 2 or tip number 2. And this is something that is universal in anything that we do, okay? Whatever you do, the Sharia tells us that 3 things should be done. Whatever it is, doesn't matter. Parenting is something. Whatever you do, 3-step process. Number 1, you have to have the niyyah in your heart to begin. And the niyyah is for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Niyyah is followed up, number 2, with ilm, knowledge. And ilm is followed with action, amal. This 3-step process is the Sharia step for doing anything. Niyyah, ilm, amal. Okay? If you want to become an engineer, first have to have the niyyah. I want to be an engineer. And as a Muslim, you do it for the sake of Allah. Then you study engineering, and then you practice engineering. Doctor, architect, car mechanic, doesn't matter. Niyyah, ilm, amal. Straightforward, right? Okay. Why is it then that so many Muslim parents don't understand they need to do the same thing? Some of them, wallahi, I'm amazed and surprised and shocked. It doesn't even occur to them. It's not even in their agenda that I have to raise my children spiritually pure. It's not even in their niyyah. How can you raise good children when it's not even on your radar, it's not even on your list of things you want to do? There's no niyyah that you have. And then niyyah is followed up with ilm. And in this case, ilm is not the type of ilm of fiqh and aqeedah. This is ilm of how to be a good parent, a good father, a good mother. And as we said in point number 1, it's constant learning. It is asking other people, see what works for you or not. Because you will see for yourself, and everybody who's a parent knows this, raising children, as we said, is an art, not a science. So ilm here is not the ilm of equations and a particular method. Ilm here is just get the advice of your peers, of your cousins and friends, of other people in your society, of your neighborhood. Read some books, listen to some lectures, and then try, experiment. What works for one child might not work for another. What works for 2 of them will not work for the 3rd. What worked for none of the first 3 will work for the 4th child. This is the reality. So ilm here means you have to be open-minded, broad-minded, ask and read and listen and research. But it's not a science, it is an art. Still, art has an ilm to it as well. That's my point here. Then ilm is followed by amal. Amal here means hands-on learning. Try one thing, see what it works. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. Make every failure a mechanism to potential success. Learn from your mistakes, okay? Such that your mistakes make you a better parent, not a worse parent. As long as you're bettering yourself, there is no such thing as a mistake. As long as the learning curve continues to go up, that's what we're talking about over here. So, when it comes to parenting, these are 3 simple, again, this is the second point. We have 7 points today. The second point, have it in your mind, in your niyyah, that I have to raise children that are pious and righteous. This is my responsibility. Remind yourself of the ayat and hadith that tell you of your responsibility as a parent. Remember, our Prophet ﷺ said, all of you are shepherds and all of you will be asked about your flock. And so the father is a shepherd, he'll be asked about his family. The mother is a shepherd, she'll be asked about the family. Notice, mother and father have the same flock, same responsibility. But how they express that responsibility is different. The rights of the father are not the rights of the mother, but their responsibility overlaps. It's the family. Both mother and father are responsible. This is your niyyah. You have to answer Allah Azza wa Jal what you've done. And then ilm, and then amal. All of this has to be in your frame of mind. So, the second point, we said, niyyah, ilm, and amal. And this is anything that you do. My third point, the third point that I have, lead by example and not by lectures. Lead by example and not by lectures. Your child will observe what you are doing, not what you are saying. The best way to impact your child is to be a role model for them. And being a role model means you need to be consistent in your own lifestyle. You need to demonstrate what it means to be a Muslim, to love Allah and His Messenger. sallallahu alayhi wasallam. How you interact with others is the mannerisms you will teach your child to interact with others. There's no point dumping him in the madrasa 1 hour a week when 23 hours a day he sees his father doing something else. There's no benefit in bringing in the imam or Maulana Sahib to your house and teaching one thing when he sees being practiced another thing. I ask you by Allah, dear Muslim parents, if you do not pray 5 times a day, how can you expect your child to pray 5 times a day? If you don't wake up for Fajr, how can you expect your child to wake up for Fajr? If you don't care about where your rizq comes from, how will you make your child understand you need to watch every dinar and dirham, every dollar and penny, every pound and rupee that comes to your pocket has to be halal? You need to monitor it in your own daily life, such that you impact your child in that manner. We all know the famous saying that actions speak louder than words. And this is especially the case for children. Children absorb the values from their parents, and they see what their parents do. I tell you honestly, dear parents, there are sisters in the audience as well? Brothers and sisters, husbands and wives, mothers and fathers, I swear to you, how you two interact with one another will dictate very much how your child will interact with his or her future spouse. The way you deal with your husband, sisters, or husbands, the way you deal with your wives, it will be absorbed by your children. What you are doing in your lifestyle will have repercussions for generations to come. It's not just you. It will have repercussions for generations to come. And this is something that survey after study has shown and demonstrated. I'll tell you one statistic. When I first read it, I was shocked because I didn't understand this statistic. But then obviously, in light of what I've said, it's completely common sense. I read a statistic in one study that the majority of those men who abuse their wives, physically abuse them, pause here, footnote, dear men, Aisha radiallahu anha said, hadith is in Bukhari, and she gave qasam by Allah, wallahi, she said, the Prophet ﷺ never once raised his hand to strike a servant, a child, or a lady. In a society where beating one's wife was the norm, every husband disciplined his wife. In a society where it was the culture and the custom, our Prophet ﷺ demonstrated what a true gentleman is. Aisha gave a qasam by Allah. Wallahi, she said, radiallahu anha, the Prophet ﷺ never raised his hand against a khadim, against a child, against a lady in his entire life. Don't tell me you love the sunnah and then you don't follow the sunnah. Okay? So the point being that a study and a survey showed that I think 60-65% of men who abuse their wives, they come from families where their fathers abuse their mothers. Now, I read this, and the first time I read it, I thought I don't understand. Why? Because when a teenager, I'm talking to the men here, when you're a teenager, suppose you're a teenager, and you see your father being angry at your mother and shouting and maybe even doing more than shouting, as a teenager, automatically, where will your emotions go? Tell me. Towards the mother. As a teenager, who will you automatically want to protect? The mother. So now, I thought when I read this statistic, that doesn't make any sense. Why does the 15-year-old kid, as a 15-year-old, want to side with the mother? Then when the 15-year-old becomes a 45-year-old, he becomes the father. You understand the question here, right? When he knows firsthand what damage physical abuse does in a household, why would he choose that path? And obviously the answer, I answered myself. Because when he becomes an adult and gets angry, he becomes his father. That's what a man does with his wife when he's angry. Even though if you were to ask him when he's calm, he would say, oh yeah, I've seen it and I know it, it's not good. He would verbally say one thing, but what do his manners show? The exact opposite. Parents, you want your children to be good, you had better be good yourselves. It's very simple as that. I'll share with you a personal anecdote. Have some more. I'll share with you a personal anecdote in my own life. So, my father, may Allah give him a long life. He's 85 years old. He's alhamdulillah, he's alhamdulillah healthy for his age. He keeps on telling me. My father, he's been an activist his whole life, alhamdulillah. He's been very involved with the masjid. He's the founder of the first masjid in Houston, Texas. He founded the MSA, or the ISOC of Texas, and back in the 60s. And so I was born in a family, alhamdulillah, very, very active. And by the way, some people ask me, how did you become who you become? Firstly, do not put any person, especially me, on a pedestal. You want to follow somebody? Follow the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Secondly, if there is any good in someone like me, it is because Allah blessed me with the two parents that I have. The both of them, their akhlaq and their tarbiyah and their love for Allah and His Messenger. And I'll give you one example. This is the anecdote that I have in my personal life. That one of the things my father did, and I was born in the 70s, raised in the 80s. My house was a bit far from the masjid, not like you guys, mashallah, walking distance and everybody, America is different. And he started praying Maghrib every single day with all of us kids and my mother in Jama'ah. As long back as I can remember, my earliest memories are of praying Maghrib in our musalla house, musalla room that we had, and it was non-stop, no matter what the circumstances or situation, no matter if I had an exam the next day, no matter if I was in middle school, high school, university, college, doesn't matter. I was in my parents' house throughout university, didn't matter. Knock on my door, Maghrib time, come. If we had non-Muslim guests, he would tell them, please excuse us, we have to pray. We would all march to the musalla in our house, we would pray Salat al-Maghrib as a family, no exceptions. 1995, alhamdulillah, Allah blessed me to go to University of Medina. And alhamdulillah, Allah blessed me to be there for 10 years. And I tell you one thing, not to brag or boast, but to tell you how much I miss the city. I miss that city. I miss it. Because one of the reasons, in fact, the main reason to be honest, for 10 solid years, if I were in the city and not sick, i.e., if I'm traveling or sick, okay. Otherwise, for 10 solid years, without exception, unless I'm traveling or sick, I prayed Maghrib and Isha in the haram of the Prophet ﷺ. Those were beautiful days and beautiful years. Without exception, 10 solid years in the haram. That was my lifestyle. I would go, take my books there, read between Maghrib and Isha, and then go back home. 10 solid years. 2005, I finished my master's, I did my bachelor's, did my master's, finished my master's, and then decided to do my PhD in America. And I go to some small little village called New Haven in Connecticut, which is where Yale University is. And the masjid is far, I didn't have a car really in the beginning anyway. And remember, 10 years have gone by, right, since I've been in Houston. And I've been in Medina for 10 years. I had 3 kids at the time. My eldest Ammar was 5 years old. Yusuf was 3. And subhanAllah, the first few days in this new environment, and I felt something itching inside of me, especially around Maghrib time. And the first week I came back, I said, you know, even if my kid is only 5, let me just give the adhan and have them stand behind me. Little Yusuf was still in diapers, no problem, he'll pray, no problem. My wife behind me. And it is now 2019, right? We still pray Maghrib Salah to this day as a family when I'm home. Where did this habit come from? Who put it in me? Did my father sit down and give me a long lecture? Did he remind me, Bete, when you become older, you have your kids? No. What did he do? Lifestyle. And even I was shocked because it's not something I'm consciously thinking about that we pray Maghrib as a family, right? It's gone from my memory. 10 years in Medina. But see, this is what happens when you have the tarbiyah through action. Subconscious. Even I was surprised. Where is this coming from? But of course I realized this is what happens when you have that consistency. And that's what I'm trying to impress upon you. Actions speak louder than words. Dear parents, look at your own actions. Don't just blame other people and pass them. You are responsible, and your akhlaq, and your manners, and your ibadah, and your mu'amalat with other people, that is going to be the #1 impact on your son or your daughter. So you want your children to be good, begin with yourself. If you are not good, you have no one to blame but yourself. So this is my third, what is it, rule or tip or advice? There are no rules, right? Even though if there were any rules, this would be the rule. If there was a rule that is hard and fast, even though it is not. If there was a rule that is hard and fast, it would be number 3. Okay, number 4 now, tips, number 4. This applies more to teenagers. And by the way, I have 3 teenagers currently in my house, under one roof. I have 4 kids. 3 of them simultaneously are teenagers, right? Please make dua for me. This white hair you see, that's where it's coming from. We're all in the same boat. Wallahi, dear Muslims, just because I am who I am, my kids are teenagers in the modern world. We are all in the same boat. You are struggling, I am struggling. Doesn't matter. And it's nobody's fault. It's just the way the world is. So some advice for the younger adults, meaning 12, 13, 14, 15. This is tip number 4. One of the biggest problems that our society has is that it tells us there's this interim phase that they call teenage years. And they expect teenagers to be treated like children. But our Sharia tells us that young men and women are literally that, young men and young women. Our Sharia tells us, when does an adult become an adult? When does a child become an adult? At the onset of puberty. And that's what age? 13, 14, 15 max. So my tip number 4, don't infantilize, treat like an infant. Don't infantilize teenagers. Treat them like young men and women. Talk to them sensibly. When they're 3 or 4, I understand you need to raise your voice. You need to say, because I said so. End of story. That doesn't work effectively when they're 14. It's not good enough just to say, because I'm your father, do it. That's not tarbiyah at that stage of your life. Don't treat a 14-year-old like a 4-year-old. He's 14. The Sharia, the Quran, the Sunnah gives us many examples. Ibrahim and Ismail. When Allah showed the dream to Ibrahim, Ismail was not yet baligh. They say he was 13 years old. The dream, you know, the dream. What does the Quran say? Did Ibrahim barge in and drag the son out? Say, I don't care what you're thinking. Did what he did? No. He took him for a walk, as our books mention. Took him for a long walk, father-son moment. Tells him, Ya bunay, my dear son, I have a dream. And this is what I saw in the dream. Then you know what he said at the end? What do you think I should do? Think about this. Do you think Ibrahim was asking Ismail because based on what Ismail would say, Ibrahim would do it or not? Tell me, oh parents. Do you think Ibrahim cared about Ismail's permission? Yes or no? He didn't care about the permission. So why is he asking Ismail? That's what you do with an adult. You prepare them. I need to do something big. Understand what I'm doing. And notice when he treated Ismail like a young man that he was, what did Ismail say? What does the Quran say? قَالَ يَا أَبَتِي إِفْعَلْ مَا تُؤْمَرُ. This is what happens when you treat a young man like a man. Stop infantilizing young men and women. Allah mentions in the Quran, وَابْتَلُوا الْيَتَامَى, and it's a long tafsir of this, but to summarize, extract from it, Allah is advising us, young men and women, give them responsibilities. If they pass, increase their responsibility. If they pass, keep on increasing. If they fail, make them learn from the mistake and then do it again. This is in the Quran, that you don't just leave kids be kids. Give them responsibilities suitable for their age. And expect them to fail once in a while. That's why you're there. Now you're training your son or daughter to be a man or woman. They're going to make some mistakes. Okay, have that in mind. Make sure they learn from their mistakes and then move on to the next phase. Don't expect at the age of 19, magically your teenager daughter or son will become a full-fledged adult man or woman. Doesn't work that way. From the age of 12, 13, to the age of adulthood, culturally speaking, no, culturally 15 is not an adult. Fine, no problem. Culturally, adult is what, 19, 18? Fine. In this time frame, your job is to transition them from a child to a full-fledged adult in society. And that will be done at your pace and his or her pace. But it must be done. That's rule number 4. Don't treat young men and women like kids. Treat them like adults. Reason with them. Talk with them. Man to man or man to woman if it's your daughter, or woman to son if it's... Talk to them. Intellectually explain to them what you're doing. And even if they don't agree, Don't just raise your voice and expect a harshness to do the job. Even if they don't agree, you can always pull the card, well, I'm sorry you don't agree, but I am your parent in the end of the day, and as long as you live under my roof, you have to follow my rules. Fine, you can say that, but make them understand. I have had frank conversations with my teenagers. I've said to them, look, I try to explain why the rule is there, and they say, look, even if you don't agree with it, and I tell them this, by the way, I actually say this, I have a very different relationship. I say to them, you know what, maybe I'm wrong in this rule. Maybe this rule will not help you in the long run. But at this stage of my life and my knowledge, I feel that this rule is for your betterment. When you come of my age and you have a son or daughter that is the same age as you are now, you have the right to make your own decision and then see whether this worked or not. But given my knowledge, in my opinion, this is the best way to keep you on the straight path. Explain the rule is for their love. Believe you me, most of the times, even if they don't agree, at least they'll understand. They're not going to throw a teenage tantrum. Wallahi, teenagers should not throw tantrums, but one of the reasons they do is because they're treated like kids. It's our fault for treating them like kids in the first place. And it'll take a while, it's not going to be immediate, but treat them like adults and you will be surprised. Dear Muslims, intellectually, biologically, hormonally, a 15-year-old is a potential adult. Survey after survey has shown this. The Sharia therefore gives them adulthood. Now, agreed. Society has other rules. Fine, driving is no problem. But intellectually, hormonally, we all know hormonally, right? And biologically, these are young men and women. So treat them like young men and women. Reason with them, explain to them, and have conversations with them. That's my tip number 4. And I also say, by the way, as a side note here, that we live in a different time and place. Perhaps, and I grew up in the 80s. I was born in the 70s, grew up in the 80s, and it was a different time and place. And I'll be honest with you, my parents, there was that big distance of respect between me and them. And I understand that, no problem, no problem. But I feel, as a parent to kids now, that we need to no longer maintain that level. I have a friendship with my elder kids as well. I speak to them about matters that are not just father-son and father-daughter related. With my eldest, I have conversations about the world, about Trump, or in your case, maybe Brexit, I don't know, Not that I care about his views, but I found that, honestly, it makes us bond in a way that like almost a friendly attitude. And therefore, when I do need to bring in a rule, he'll be much more obedient and listening, because we now have somewhat of a friendship. Now again, I'm not blaming or criticizing. I love my mother and father immensely. I just say it was a different time and place. That's all I say. Wouldn't have worked back then. But times have changed. Dear parents, I gently ask you to think about this thing. When your son or daughter makes a mistake, because it's when, not if. When he or she makes a mistake, if they don't feel comfortable coming to you, they're going to go somewhere else. Do you think that's in their best interest? Simple as that. Ask yourselves the question, does my child have that relationship with me that he or she would come to me and tell about a mistake? That's something you need to think about. And I say this point number 4 will help you immensely to get this point done. Point number 5. There's only 7 points and we're done. Point number 5. Point number 5. There will come a point, and I speak primarily now to the men or to the breadwinners, but usually they're men. There will come a point in your life, like we all begin our careers, we all dedicate our lives primarily to our careers, and we want to increase our wealth and our status and our pay grade. That's fully understandable, and everybody does that. Okay, there will come a point in our life where we'll get a fork in the road. We can turn right or left. If we turn right, we'll get the promotion, we'll get the pay raise, but it'll come at the expense of an hour or 2 at home. And if we turn left, we turn down the pay raise, but we get to spend an hour a day extra. Now, this comes every few years in our lives. And I'm not telling you when, but at one of those forks, at one of those occasions, you need to remind yourself, the 10,000 pounds extra a year that I'm going to earn is not worth the hour and a half I'm not going to be at home. There's gonna come a point, sometimes maybe that money is needed to send them to school, to have a roof over their heads, especially in the beginning of their career, understandable. But there comes a point where the time that you spend with your child is much more precious than the extra money you'll earn by going the path of the career, the extra career. Now what that point is, only you and your spouse can together negotiate. But I want you to keep it in your head. At some point, your son or daughter needs your presence more than he or she needs your credit card. And in fact, a recent survey or a recent study has shown, and honestly we don't even need a study to tell us this, that intellectual maturity in a child is maximized when the child has a role model, father and mother figure in his or her life. Both figures are needed. When one of them is absent, then you are prone to go right or left and deviate and crime, etc., etc. When there's a role model, mother and father, female and male figure in the household, the child reaches intellectual maturity and stability better, quicker, and faster. And this is common sense. We don't need any survey to tell us, but a very famous survey was done. It was used because, and you understand things are changing in terms of definitions of family, you understand. So this survey obviously is useful for those who are saying, keep the old definition of family. If you understand what I'm talking about, if not, then alhamdulillah, I don't even worry about it. But anyway, Allahumma musta'an, what can we do? Anyway, so point number 5 is very simple. At some point, time is more precious than the extra money. That's point number 5, tip number 5. And there's a beautiful hadith of our Prophet ﷺ, Muslim Imam Ahmed, it's authentic hadith, where our Prophet ﷺ said, everything that does not have dhikrullah, everything that does not have dhikrullah, yani ibadah, tilawa, Quran, dhikr, it is batil. Batil means of no value. Batil does not mean haram, by the way. Big difference. Alhamdulillah, he didn't say haram or else yani, life would be impossible, frankly, for us. Batil means there's no value. And let's be honest here. Chilling and watching Netflix for 5 hours, it's batil. You don't lose, there's no barakah in it, let's be honest here, right? Okay? There's nothing happens of value wasting your time. So it's batil. So everything like that is batil. Then he said, except for 4 things. Now, this hadith is beautiful. Why? Because these 4 things, they don't have dhikrullah, but there's barakah in them. This is a beautiful hadith, right? One of them, listen to this, fathers in particular, even though it applies to both. Rajul, a man, but it applies to women as well. While he is playing with his family and children. Mula'abatu rajuli ahlahu. A man just chilling with his family. Going out on a picnic. Even if there's no dhikr of Allah, although there should be salah and whatnot, even if there isn't, they go for an hour and come back. In that there is barakah. Think about that. A man, we can translate, chilling with his family. That's literally what the hadith is intended to convey. Mula'abatul rajul, that's the classic way of saying, a man just relaxing and having fun, and the process is racing with Aisha, and the process is playing with Hassan and Hussein, and the process of carrying Umayma when he's coming to the khutbah. Can you imagine if a khatib comes and he has his daughter or granddaughter in his hand and says, I didn't want to leave her, she was crying. That's what he said, right? I didn't want to leave her, she was crying. This is our Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Jabir ibn Abdullah says, one day we went into sajda and we stayed and stayed and stayed until I became worried. Maybe somebody attacked the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And so, scared, fearfully, I lifted my head up to see what's happening. And lo and behold, Hassan was on his back playing and jumping. And the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa sallam is there waiting for the kid to get off his back. Without, you can take the kid off if you want, But this is what you call love. This is what you call mercy and compassion. And so because of this, he's there. And the whole congregation is waiting. Because it is the Prophet. So we're not going to do anything. Right? The famous Al-Aqra' bin Habis, the Najdi chieftain, he comes. And he says, when he saw the Prophet ﷺ and Hassan and Hussein were playing around. And while the chieftain, this man with his cloak and whatnot, he walks in. And he raised Hassan. And he kissed Hassan. Right? And the man felt like, this is your leader? And he said, I have 10 sons, and I have never once picked up any of them or kissed them. What's he trying to say, by the way? What's he trying to say? Tell me.
Arrogance. You're not a man.
You're not a
man.
Why? Explain to me why.
You're showing affection.
You're not a macho, right?
You're showing affection.
You're showing affection. This is weakness. Right? You're showing weakness. Because you have mercy. Said, I have 10 sons. I have never once picked up any of them and kissed any of them. He's trying to boast. Like, what type of leader is this of yours? And what did our Prophet just smack him down? What did he say? What can I do if Allah has removed mercy from your heart? You're boasting that you cannot kiss your own children. You think this is a boast and a brag? ماذا أفعل? What can I do if there's no rahmah in your heart? See, dear brothers, your family, your wife, your children, they need your presence. They need your money as well, by the way, right? But you need to balance that. You need to balance that. You need to spend time. And as I said, a point will come in your life where the time is more needed than the money. Now, I understand, we understand as men, sometimes our families don't understand. There's certain things, a job we need to do. Fine, I'm not telling you when. I'm simply saying there will come a point in all of our lives. This is the general rule, where that extra money is not worth that time. Spend time with the kids. Take them out. Literally have a picnic. Go with them so that you bond. This is going to save and preserve family, and they will listen to you better because it will bring the bonds of love. This is point number 5. Point number 6. The saying goes, it takes a village to raise a child. And this is very true. A mother and father on their own cannot raise a child. It's just too much work. A mother and father on their own cannot raise a child. You need help. And the help that we need, especially as Muslims, is through our close network of friends and our masajids as well. So point number 6 is as follows. Choose your community and your close friends wisely. Choose them with the interest of your child in mind, and not just your own interests. Because a man follows the religion of his friends, correct? So be careful whose friendship you have. Islam, as a religion, is not just something we memorize in some textbooks. It's not some abstract reality, theoretical, hypothetical. It is an experienced reality. It is something you see, you tangibly live. If your child does not see lived Islam, if Islam is only found in the 1-hour madrasa, you thrust him in thinking that's going to save him. If he doesn't see family and friends acting as Muslims, embodying the values of Islam, then Islam might well be lost on the child. But when the child is surrounded by Muslims, all interactions are within the framework of Islam. When the friends you go to, their children are like their parents, this is inshallah ta'ala going to rub the child in a different manner. And that's what we want. Be careful who you're, now obviously colleagues and acquaintances, we all have them, alhamdulillah. But you know, we all have a set of close friends. The ones we invite for occasions and they invite us for occasions, right? Choose those friends wisely. Because their children are affected by those parents, and you want your children as well to be affected by them. The same goes for masajid. Now again, I know England is different, so I'm speaking for America. Don't extrapolate from this. I'm speaking for America. I'm not qualified to speak specifically about British issues here. But I say in America, there is a movement going on, and I'm definitely one of the names that is pushing for this, that masajid have to become more than just a musalla area. Masajid have to become family life structures. We in America are pushing for this. And alhamdulillah, more and more masajid are following now. When we purchase a land for the masjid, we don't just have a lot allocated for the musalla area. There's always something for the youth. There's always a place where socialization can occur. In my masjid in Dallas, alhamdulillah, we have 2 basketball fields. We have a gymnasium, a sisters and a brothers gymnasium. We're going to build a swimming pool where our sisters can come separate, our brothers can come separate. Eventually, there's going to be a cafe. Why should our kids go to Costa's or Starbucks? Why shouldn't they come to the masjid and find friendships there? When they want to come study, they should have a place in the masjid. Now again, I know England is different, so but I'm saying from our perspective, a masjid, and this is by the way the sunnah. If you look at the Prophet's masjid, it wasn't just for salah. Socialization occurred there. Throughout the Prophet, it was his office. Delegations came over there, right? Even when the Abyssinians did their playing with the spears, where did they do it? In the masjid, right? This is halal arts happening in the masjid. When the Sahaba had meetings in the masjid became a place of socialization. So the hub is the hub of the community, not just for the ibadat and the salawat. Of course, the ibadat and salat have to take, I'm not saying, but I'm saying more than that. Now again, I don't know your situation here, but I'm simply saying this is under rule number 6, which is community and friends. For Islam to survive and flourish, your child has to see and experience lived Islam and not just theoretical, abstract book Islam. This is point number 6, and now our final point, and then inshallah ta'ala I'll hand it over to our sponsors. The 7th and final point. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with a secret weapon, which some of us don't even know about, and even more sadly, those that do rarely take advantage of. It is a gift He has given us that is more precious than gold and platinum in this issue of raising our children. It is a weapon in our arsenal that is so powerful, and yet it is barely used. And it is the weapon of dua. The weapon of dua. Our Prophet ﷺ said, 3 are the du'as that are never rejected by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. 3 are the du'as that are always accepted. And one of them is the dua of the parent for the child. By Allah, I ask you, you know that Allah will accept the dua of the parent for the child. Your Nabi and my Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam has promised that when a father or mother raises his or her hands up to Allah and from the depths of his or her heart calls out to Allah for the benefit of their child, that Allah will hear that prayer and answer to that prayer. And yet we don't make dua for our own children. I mean, if we cannot even make dua for our kids, let me be brutally frank here. If we're so lazy or so stingy as to not even raise our hands up for Allah and say, oh Allah, bless my son. Oh Allah, guide my daughter. Oh Allah, grant them the best in this dunya and the akhirah. Oh Allah, guide them to the best akhlaq. Oh Allah, cause them to love Allah and His Messenger. The Quran has, no exaggeration, more than half a dozen du'as about parents for their children. More than half a dozen about parents for their children. How many of us have even known these du'as? How many of us use those du'as? هَبْ لِي مِن لَدُنْكَ ذُرِّيَّةً طَيِّبَةً أَصْلِحْ لِي فِي ذُرِّيَّتِي رَبَّنَا هَبْ لَنَا مِنْ أَزْوَاجِنَا وَذُرِّيَّاتِنَا قُرَّةَ أَعْيُنٍ وَاجْعَلْنَا لِلْمُتَّقِينَ إِمَامًا. Allah is gifting us, not on a silver platter, not on a platinum. It's more precious than this dunya and all that is in it. Allah is telling us, use this dua. Here, use it. Many of us don't even know it's in the Quran. Many of us have no clue that our du'as are answered for our children. Wallahi, how can any good come to our children when we're not even asking for their good? So please, from now on, parents, use this weapon all the time. Every prayer, every dua. I mean, I don't know about you. Actually, I do know about you. Is there anything more precious than our children for us? We all know this. Of what use is money? We use our money for our children. Why does every one of us here go to work? It's for our family. It's for them. So what's more precious than them? Nothing. In this dunya at least, nothing. So why can't we make dua regularly for our children? Ibrahim alayhi salam is building the Kaaba. What is on his mind? He's building the Kaaba. What is on his mind? رَبِّ اجْعَلْنِي مُقِيمَ الصَّلَاةِ وَمِنْ ذُرِّيَّتِي. Look at who he's thinking. Look at how he's thinking. He wants his children to be of those who pray towards this Kaaba. Dear Muslim parents, if you're not going to make dua for your kids, then who will? What else? I mean, what do you lose by this? And there's another benefit, by the way, of making dua. When you make dua constantly, you remind yourself of your own obligations towards your kids. You remind yourself, I need to take care of my kids. I have a responsibility towards my kids, right? And so it's not only Allah's barakah, it's also that you remind yourself about this issue. And final point, dear brothers and sisters, look, these are 7, what were they? 7 what? Tips, not rules. Because raising children is an art, not a science, okay? 7 tips. Look, in the end of the day, why are they tips? Because you can do all of them, and these aren't the only I can give, have longer lectures, and others can give other lectures. You can do everything. Are you guaranteed that your child is going to come out? No, you're not guaranteed. Nuh alayhi salam. How about his son? Is anybody going to say that Nuh was not a good role model father? Not make dua for him? Nuh, alayhi salam. What are you going to do? You can do everything in the book. But in the end of the day, I do not control the hearts of my children. I do not. I cannot. إِنَّكَ لَا تَهْدِي مَنْ أَحْبَبْتَ. I cannot guide someone just because I love them. It is Allah who guides. So, Allah will not judge us based upon the result. This is Allah's mercy. Allah will judge us based upon the effort. Did we try our best? Did we do everything in our power? We do it, and we leave the rest to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because in the end of the day, once the child becomes an adult, what can I do? And by the way, the parent will never stop trying until the parent dies. That's the job of the parent. And it is possible, and I have many instances and stories where the parent dies and the child becomes righteous afterwards. And I don't think the parent failed. I think this is the fruit that was planted. And the death of the parent sparked that fruit to grow up. I've seen and I have plenty of stories in my own extended circle of friends. So never give up, never give up. Keep on trying. Lots of dua, lots of love, all of these points and more. And in the end, you leave it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Final point, and then I please ask you to remain a few minutes because in the end of the day, this point is relevant, and then the sponsors do have a very good project and they have promised me, how long? 3 minutes?
15.
3 minutes. Okay. Brother Rahim Jung, who's one of yours, right? This is his masjid? Apparently, mashallah. Not his meaning owning, but he comes here, mashallah, regularly. So I traveled the world with him. So now I'm coming to the masjid he prays in. So it's like something, you all know Brother Rahim Jung and the Jung family, alhamdulillah. I've known them for more than 25 years, the Jung family, alhamdulillah. Not Rahim, I've only known him for 20 years, but the rest of them are 25 years. So final point, and it is a related point. I've given you 7 tips. There's actually more, and if I were to add one more, an 8th one would be the following. We have a principle in Islamic theology, كَمَا تَدِينُ تُدَانُ. As you do unto others, you shall taste the reward or the punishment in the same manner. There's another principle, الْجَزَاءُ مِنْ جِنْسِ الْعَمَلِ. الْجَزَاءُ مِنْ جِنْسِ الْعَمَلِ. The reward or the punishment is going to be in accordance with what you have done. So, you want your kids to be taken care of, Islamically and financially. One of the easiest ways to guarantee that is to take care of orphan kids who have nobody to take care of them. Simple as that. That's why I'm saying it's related exactly to our project. One of the easiest ways to help your own children is to help those who have no other help after Allah Azza wa Jal, and those are the most vulnerable, and those are orphans. And in fact, I don't even need to quote you generalities. We have specific evidences in the Quran about this. Surah Al-Kahf. Khidr and Musa, the last 3 stories of Surah Al-Kahf, right? The 3 incidents. I don't have time to go into tafsir here. If you don't know them, read them, and I have a tafsir of Surah Al-Kahf online. In the 3 stories between Khidr and Musa, 2 of them involve children. In the first of those, because the parents were righteous, Allah gives them righteous children. In the second of those, because the parent, in this case we know the father, was righteous, Allah takes care of the physical well-being of the child, even though the child is an orphan. The piety of the parents and the righteousness of the parents, and in particular, taking care of orphans, will come back and benefit you in this world before the next. So our pitch today is for orphans, and I want to say, and I do this all the time for good charities, all charities are good. Reed has a specific niche that I personally love and like, and I'm very honored to be their global ambassador, and I've been with them on site. You see, most charities, they just feed and that's it. And that's good, I mean, we need to do that. But Reed is thinking long term. What will really change an orphan's life? 1 meal? Education. Education. That's what Reed is doing. And that's why, to me, it is a game changer. Rather than just being reactive, somebody's hungry, give him a meal. Somebody's hungry, give him a piece of food, of bread. No, this is much more long-term. For 30 years, Reed has been opening schools in underprivileged and in refugees and for the orphans. And alhamdulillah, earlier this year, I opened a school in my mother's name as well in Kashmir for 350 children, 10% of whom are orphans. 10% are orphans. And that's the average ratio. 10% are orphans in the school. All of them are socioeconomically underprivileged children. And it's very feasible to do. So I'll leave Brother Rahim Jung to give you the details of that and how you can, inshallah, do it. And please, 3 minutes. Please remain, inshallah, and then we are done, inshallah. You can sit down.
Thank you.
3 minutes.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Jazakumullah khairan for your patience, my brothers and my sisters. Wallahi, I feel shy always to stand in this masjid because I've been praying my Jummah here for 25 years, and I feel shy to ask to the people I pray alongside. But wallahi, I feel very passionate about Reed, and I will only take not even 3 minutes of your time. As our Sheikh said, we know the rewards of taking care of an orphan. Allah tells us in the Quran, the Messenger of Allah told us again and again and again about the extent of the reward, the magnitude of the reward. So why, I ask myself, why is there so much reward for taking care of an orphan? Shiekh Yasir alluded to it. Every parent in this room knows what I'm saying is true. I have 5 children. If my daughter trips and falls in the road, and there is a bus coming at full speed down that road, as a father, I don't have to think. I don't have to make mashura. I don't have to calculate, will I save myself or will I save my daughter? I will throw myself under the wheels of a bus to try and save my child. Every mother, every father will do this. For the orphan child, that's the person who's gone. It's that person who's gone from this dunya. No one is going to work overtime and take grief off their boss. No one is going to sweat to pay for tuition. Nobody is going to be looking after their health and their future. Which is why Allah tells us, you take care of the orphan and Allah will take care of us. And Allah guarantees whatever we give, Allah will replace it. We lose nothing. So we're here with Reed Foundation today. We take care of orphans in Kashmir. We take care of orphans in Pakistan, in Bangladesh, Palestinian orphans and Syrian refugee orphans. We're taking care of them and more, we're educating them so that they don't need to come back and ask for our help. They won't need to come back when they have children and ask for our help. They will look after themselves. I'm not going to ask people to put their hands up. We're not going to do that thing. We're asking you on the way out, please. To take care of one orphan for 1 month is £30. £30 will take care of the entire needs of an orphan for 1 month. If you can sponsor an orphan for a year, it's £30 a month. If you can just give 1 month, just give 1 month. If you want to take care of 3 orphans, take care of 3 orphans, as you wish. But please, when you leave, we have our people here from Reed Foundation. Please give whatever you can and know that, and this is the most amazing thing for me. Really, when you talk about sadaqatun jariyah, an ongoing sadaqah, imagine you educate a child. You never see them, you never know them, you don't know their name. But because you educated that child, they're able to marry someone educated. They're able to educate their children. Instead of their children being manual laborers, now their children are educated. Their grandchildren, their great-grandchildren are all educated. Can you imagine that matrix? By the time you get to the 2nd generation, 3rd generation, 4th generation, how much khair and barakah has come from your £30? Allah will never lose count. Allah knows everything that sadaqah jariyah becomes. So jazakumullahu khairan for your patience. That's all from me. May Allah bless each and every one of you. Those who can give, those who can't give, may Allah accept it from all of us. Jazakumullahu khairan to Shiekh Yasir. Jazakumullahu khairan for your patience. Jazakallah khair to, we have of course to our Imam Zahir Gatton. Alhamdulillah. And I do apologize. I know that Shiekh Yasir, alhamdulillah, would love to stay and answer questions, but believe it or not, he's on his 3rd program today, and we have 4th, and we have another program for him to get to now. So, Jazakumullah khairan for your sabr, for your understanding. We thank Jazakallah khair to Shiekh Yasir, and Jazakallah khair to all of you. Wassalamu alaikum.